Hi, today we're going to have a look at how to change the cartridges on the GPA Wholefoods range of reverse osmosis water filters. Okay, once you've made sure that you've turned the water supply off at the supply tap and also turned the valve on top of the storage tank off, it's time to replace the sediment and the carbon cartridge. This will be done about every 12 months. It's as simple as unscrewing the housing, removing the old cartridge, placing the new cartridge in, and screwing it back on. You might find that these are quite tight initially to undo, and the use of one of the rubber strap bottle openers that you can get from most housewares and hardware stores is more than suitable for undoing tightly done up housings. Once again, I'll show you on the carbon cartridge. It's just a matter of unscrewing it, removing the carbon cartridge, putting in a new one, and screwing it back up. Okay, next we'll look at replacing the reverse osmosis membrane. That is the housing, horizontal on the top, that has got the ribbed end cap on it. Now the easiest way to remove that end cap is to unscrew the water supply pipe going into the end cap. Just remove that out of the way. The other end of the housing has got these mouldings in it that make it easy to hold on to get some tension on the housing to unscrew. And then grabbing the ribbed end cap at the other end. It's usually quite firm, but it's just a matter of unscrewing and then inside you'll see the membrane. Now I like to use a pair of pliers. To remove the membrane, it's just a matter of grabbing on to that white piece of pipe that you see in the middle, giving it a gentle twist as you're pulling it out, and the membrane will come out. And it's just a matter of making sure that you insert the new membrane in the correct way, that being the end with the two little black O-rings goes in first, with the black O-ring on the outside the last to go in. Make sure when you put it in you push it all the way in. You'll find that it's quite a firm, snug fit, like so, and then screw the end cap back on, making sure that you do it up nice and tight. And all that's left to do is then to reconnect the water supply pipe just by inserting it back into the connector and screwing it up. There's no need to use a spanner on this fitting, it just needs to be done up firmly by your fingers. Okay, the next cartridge we're going to look at replacing is the polishing cartridge, which is this one on the front. It usually says chlorine and odour reduction. Replacing this is not too dissimilar to replacing the remineralisation cartridge, so if you follow the procedure that we're using for this, you'll also be able to use the same procedure for the remineralising cartridge if your system has one. As you can see, this one has a remineralising cartridge on the back. The first thing I like to do on this system is, when I've got a fitting with just one pipe going into it, I like to disconnect it. It's a matter of removing the red circlip, and you'll see a little grey collet around the pipe going into the fitting. What you need to do is you need to push that collet back into the fitting and hold it so that it's flush against the fitting, and then you should be able to just gently slide out the pipe, and that gets it out of the way, so it's easier to get your adjustable wrench onto the fitting. And it's just a matter of unscrewing that fitting. As you'll see, the thread's got white thread tape on it. Remove that one out of the way. Keep that aside because you'll be reusing it. Now the one on the other side's got multiple pipes connected into it and a T-piece. I find it's easier on that one not to necessarily remove it, but what I do is I hold that fitting with the wrench and unscrew the cartridge. Now once that's done, you'll want to clean up the thread. If there's a big glut of tape on there, it's usually a good idea just to remove it like that. It usually comes off quite easily. Now you will need to put some more thread tape on your fitting. With your water filter system when you bought it new, you would have had a roll, a little blue and white roll of thread tape. And it's just a matter of putting, say, 3 or 4 wraps of thread tape onto the thread. And this just ensures that when we screw this into the new cartridge, that it produces a nice watertight fitting. So there's my turns of thread tape on it. Just going to make sure it's on nice and smooth and the grooves of the thread are clearly evident, like so. Now just make sure that you get the flow direction on your replacement cartridges right. All of these cartridges will actually have a flow direction on it, so please take note of the flow direction before you remove the cartridge and make sure the new one goes on in the same way. When you're starting the thread on these, just maybe roll it backwards a little bit as if you're undoing it before you start screwing it up, just to make sure that you catch the thread square. If the thread starts to go in at a weird angle, stop and undo it and reseat the thread before screwing it up. The reason for this is that it is a plastic thread and can be easily damaged. Once again, we put the wrench back on and we screw the fitting into the housing, and it should be a nice firm fit. If it's not very firm, it means you probably need to use a little bit more tape, and you just screw it until that fitting is flush with the housing. Put the new housing back onto its bracket, and we repeat the process with the other side. This one here, there's not a great deal of thread tape on there to actually grab off. There's a little wisp that I'm going to grab, but it's not very much on there at all. I'm going to put some thread tape on this one again. And also, when you're putting thread tape on fittings, make sure you don't get thread tape over the end of your fitting, because that can actually block water flowing through the fitting altogether. Okay, just smoothing that tape on with my fingers, making sure that the first few threads are adequately exposed so that they'll grip into the cartridge. And once again, using the wrench, screw that in until it's all the way home. If you're finding it's very tight and it's not all the way home, as long as it's watertight, there is no need to take it any further. These are plastic fittings and we don't want to break them in the process. So that one's fairly tight, and it's maybe a millimetre or a bit less from being all the way home, but it's tight enough to be watertight. Then we reinsert the pipe. The way we insert the pipe is we just push it in lightly, then you'll feel a bit of resistance. It will push in again and hit a stop, and then what should happen is if we pull back on it, it shouldn't come out, and that collet that we pushed in before, as you pull out the try to pull out the hose, will actually stick out proud from the fitting. And while we've got that out proud, what we'll do is we'll reinsert that clip in there, and that just locks it in so the pipe can't accidentally come out. It's a very similar procedure with the remineralisation cartridge on the back. Pull out the circlips, remove both the hoses from it. You can remove the whole cartridge, unscrew the fittings, new thread tape, new cartridge, screw them in and put it all back together. And that's how we change all the cartridges on the reverse osmosis water filter.